Alright, I just updated to the new iOS 7, so kind of just getting used to this whole design and everything. Anyway, I'm gonna continue with my ethical naturalism series. I have quite a few videos that I've kind of decided that I'm gonna make here within this series. I had a little intro. Now in this video, I'm gonna talk about G.E. Moore's naturalistic fallacy, or also called the open question argument. And I'm reading out of this book. This is the Oxford Handbook of Ethical Theory, edited by David Kopp. The third entry in here is an article by Nicholas Sturgeon about ethical naturalism. It's a great resource. If you can get your hands on this book, this is a great thing to have. If you want a thing that's just about metaethics, this is a good one to have, which I will also be talking about. This book is not mine; it's a library book, but this one is mine. But yeah, the naturalistic fallacy of G.E. Moore comes out of this book of his. This is Principia Ethica. In the beginning, he does talk about hedonism. He is himself a consequentialist in ethics. I'm sorry, the sunset really is beautiful right now. So yeah, in the beginning, he does talk about naturalism. I have read the part about hedonism, and I've read the subject matter of ethics, and I've read about naturalism. But I'm not going to read out of this because it's very dense, and it is very interesting though to read out of that. So I'm going to read out of this Sturgeon, his article. First of all, Moore's argument. Well, first of all, I'm just going to have a little definition of ethical naturalism. Ethical naturalism is the statement that it's about what moral facts are. It's a statement about what kinds of facts moral facts are. That's a lot of what metaethics is, and it does relate somewhat to moral realism as it does to moral relativism. But it says that moral facts are they fit into the natural world, and that they can be investigated in the same way that scientific and natural facts can. Now, I have a lot of problems with this, but I think it's a very good thing to go through because it's a big roadblock in metaethics if you want to talk about emotivism, cognitivism, and such. So I'm going to go through all this first before I go through my favorite thing as of now, which is emotivism. And I'll also read out of Adams, E.M. Adams, Ethical Naturalism and the Modern Worldview. Has a chapter in here about emotivist ethics and logical naturalism, which is very, very interesting. But anyway, Moore's argument is basically just against naturalist ethics. And essentially what he's saying is that if goodness is a natural property, then there must be a correct account of which natural property it is. So he uses goodness as a certain example. Let's say goodness is pleasantness or pleasure of a sort, because he is a consequentialist. Moore was, he's dead. If goodness is a moral fact about the world, and you are a naturalist in ethics, then you have to have a identity sign, and you have to have goodness on one side, and you have to have a natural property on the other side, flanking those two. flanking that identity sign. So you have to say goodness is equal to X. X being a natural property of the natural scientific world. Now we do get down to questions of reducibility, like or reductionism, of how possibly this can be reduced to how a moral fact can be reducible to a natural fact, where it is able to be investigated. But that's one thing. So this is the issue. He says that what naturalists have failed to do is to give a good account of how certain moral facts like goodness and rightness and all these moral facts, how are they equal or equivalent to any certain natural properties. He says that you have to give an account of how those do that. This is what he calls the open question argument. Let's see. First, he says that if goodness is a natural property, then there must be a correct account of which natural property it is. So that's one. Number two. Any statement identifying properties in this way can be correct only if the two terms flanking the identity sign are synonyms for any competent speaker who understands them both. Okay, so these two terms flanking this identity sign. So let me get a pen here, marker. Basically, we have this here. Goodness is a moral property. It has to be equal to some natural property. He's saying that naturalists have not done this. They have not provided a good account of how that works, and they have to be synonyms too. They have to. Now, synonymy. I don't know if any of you have read Willard Van Orman Quine, but he's writing two dogmas of empiricism, for one, has problems with synonymy. He in that paper, it's a groundbreaking paper. He goes against analyticity and reductionism, and he does that a lot with rejecting the possibility of synonymy. Issues with this is that it's difficult to have synonymy. That's one issue I'm gonna talk about here soon. So that is number two of his argument. The two terms flanking that identity sign have to be synonyms. They have to be equal in meaning, I guess, for any competent speaker. Number three, Moore thought that he had a reliable substitution test for synonymy. The test is that substitution of synonyms for one another should preserve the thought or proposition that a sentence expresses, and used in a given context expresses. So, synonymy, it's like a synonymy test that using goodness versus this natural property that it's equivalent to, they have to preserve the same thought or expression. They have to preserve the same thing, no matter which one you use. So they have to be, in a sense, interchangeable. Even though one is a moral property and one is a natural property. So I think maybe you can kind of see some issues with this already. Given that they have to be synonymous, preserving the thought or expression between the two, and yet one is a moral fact and one is a natural fact. I mean, so this is Moore's argument. Phone's ringing downstairs. I don't think I want to answer it. Anyway, there are some issues that Sturgeon points out The first issue is an initial problem with is Moore's assumption number 3, the substitution test, that he has a reliable test for synonymy. For his test seems paradoxically stringent. If there are any synonyms, brother and male sibling, thinking of these two as the terms flanking the identity sign, must be such a pair. But in thinking that a brother is a male sibling, we seem to be thinking more than just that a brother is a brother. Moore's test seems to yield false negatives. So this is kind of one problem here that's kind of somewhat common. The third problem that Sturgeon introduces is my favorite. My reason for rejecting his problem, even though I'm not myself a naturalist. The truth is that we have a brother and male sibling flanking this identity sign. There are false negatives here, and also there isn't the same thought, I guess, preserved in both of them. There are some things that are not carried over, I guess. So you can see how that is a issue. Number 2, a difficulty is that more important is that his assumption 2, the one about that the two terms flanking the identity sign have to be synonymous. A difficulty is that more important is that his assumption 2, that property identification statements can be true only if the terms flanking the identity sign are synonyms of one another, has in the last several decades been widely questioned. The most telling counterexamples are of apparent scientific discoveries, such as heat equals molecular motion. Think about this. Molecular motion. The reason that something is hot, like if you heat up a stove, the reason that it's hot is because there's the molecules are moving really, really fast. That's how we get heat. That's how science has determined how something is hot. And if it's cold, then they're moving slowly. That's how science has shown that we have heat or coldness, I guess. Such as that heat is molecular motion, or that pure water is H2O. Now think about pure water equals H2O. This is from Putnam, by the way. These look like reductive property identification, and ones that are true by our best scientific account. But it is not plausible that the ones that are true by our best scientific account, but it is plausible that the pairs of terms used in stating these identifications never were or are synonyms of one another. So it seems open to an ethical naturalist who favors one of the reductive property identifications in ethics that Moore considers, to say that her formula is like one of those. True, but not true simply because the terms involved are synonyms of one another. So the problem essentially count, but it is not plausible that the pairs of terms used in stating these identifications ever were or are synonyms of one another. So even though it is the fact that pure heat, or not just heat, means the moving of molecules, they're not synonyms. They're not synonyms in the sense that of one word, totally meaning the other. You can't interchangeably say it is hot in here. We're saying the molecules in here are moving really, really fast. They'd be like, "What the fuck are you talking about? The fuck are you talking about?" If it's really, really hot in a room, and you say the molecules in here are moving really fast, they'll be like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Like, seriously. They're not synonyms. There's some meaning that is transferred in between, but they're not synonyms. Like pure water and H2O. H2O is one molecule. Pure water is if I pour some or if I get some water out of the tap and put it in a glass. They're not synonyms. So that just kind of shows a couple of issues here. How we can have issues when we're talking about synonymy, and how the reason that this is a issue, because if Moore is trying to say that if we have goodness as a moral fact, it has to be equivalent to a natural property. They have to be synonyms, and we have a substitution test for synonymy. There's issues here because there's not always going to be that way. And imagine if we actually did this with a moral property and a natural property. It's not gonna work out, I don't think. Number 3 is about non-reductive naturalism. Number 3, there is a further difficulty with Moore's argument that is less often noted. It is that his first assumption, 1, about what an ethical naturalist must maintain, can also be challenged, or more precisely, it is ambiguous. Taking 1 away, it is unassailable, but taken as Moore appears to have taken it, and as many subsequent writers have taken it, is more doubtful. What is quite certain is that an ethical naturalist who holds about an ethical property such as goodness, that it is a natural property, must also hold that it is identical with a natural property, and so there is some true property identity statement form. Goodness equals blank, where the blank is filled with a term for a natural property. But from none of this does it follow, nor need unethical naturalists believe that we know of or will ever learn of the reductive identities of this sort that Moore considered as examples. What Moore and many subsequent writers appear to have assumed is that naturalism must be committed to more than this. In particular, that to the truth of some property identity statement that has goodness paired with some clearly non-ethical terms. So this is what I like here. I'll probably make a little video thinking about this further, about this non-reductive naturalism. Is that if we have goodness, and then if we're gonna try to equate it with a natural property, it doesn't follow that we're ever gonna know this process. Now this makes me think of an external justification epistemology. Like how you are justified in knowing certain beliefs. You're not going to have cognitive access to this. Internalism says that you will, but if you're going to be a naturalist, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to know how certain moral facts are reducible and equivalent to natural facts. It doesn't follow. Now that's a big issue, I think, because you don't. I mean, I guess if you're gonna claim that little naturalist thing, you might have to know, but you might have to know. You might have to have some kind of example, but I don't know. That is a big issue. Personally, like, naturalism is gonna pretty much put moral facts. It's going to say that moral facts are the same kind of facts as natural facts are. Thus, we can investigate them in the same way that we can investigate anything else. But it doesn't really follow that we have to know how they are reducible or how they are equivalent with moral facts. So yeah, these are kind of some big issues with Moore. Personally, I don't think that one doesn't really have to be. You don't have to be a naturalist and know how that works. You don't have to. You don't have to know how moral facts are reducible to natural facts. You don't have to know that. But you have to have some kind of grounds of saying how they can be investigated in the same way. This little reduction thing that Morrow's kind of objecting to naturalism for, I don't really agree with it, because I don't think that you don't have to do that, because the notion of synonymy is flawed, and you don't really know a whole lot about what that means. But then there are some requirements for one to be a naturalist. First of all, you have to start with: are you a relativist, or are you a realist? Because you can be a naturalist for either one. The only thing that you can't be is a nihilist. You cannot be a nihilist and be a naturalist. You also can't be a emotivist. You have to. You have to be a realist or a relativist, and show somehow. You have to. A requirement that you have to be a ethical naturalist is to show in some way or another how moral facts can be investigated in the same way as scientific facts about the world can. So I disagree with Moore in all ways possible. I don't agree with his naturalistic fallacy. I just don't at all. But there are some requirements as a ethical naturalist that you have to make if you are going to be a ethical naturalist. You have to give some arguments as to how you're going to prove this, or how you're going to argue this. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks.